He's inside a grave, buried alive, stabbed 16 times, bleeding from every inch of his body. And somehow, he's still breathing. He doesn't know if anyone will ever find him. He doesn't know if he has the strength to move. But he starts digging anyway. One arm, reaching through the dirt, through the dark. The only question is, will he make it out in time? I'm Cole, and this is Midnight Files. If you're new here, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a case. Our story today is about a woman named Audrey from Santa Cruz, California. Audrey was 60 years old, and one day she made a decision that a lot of people make. She decided to leave California and move to a new city, a place called Evanston. She'd found an apartment there. She liked what she'd heard about the area, and she had family nearby. It felt right. So she started packing up her life. She rented a trailer, one of those smaller moving trucks, and loaded it up with everything she owned. All her furniture, all her belongings. She locked up her old place and didn't look back. But she knew a trip like that wasn't something she could handle alone. The drive was over 7 hours, and it was going to take real effort. So she called on a young relative of hers, a young man willing to help. And he said he'd go with her. He'd drive the trailer. He'd get her there. And so they set off together. They drove and drove. And when they got close to Evanston, they stopped at a rest stop near the city to take a break. 7+ hours on the road. They needed it. Now, while Audrey and her young relative were resting up near that city, something else was happening. A gang had arrived in Evanston. 4 people, 3 men and a young woman. The 3 men were big, intimidating. One had a thick red beard. One had a yellow beard. One had a long mustache and a heavy gut. And the 4th member of their group was a girl, 18 years old. Beautiful, almost unnaturally so. And that was no accident. They used her deliberately. She was the lure. The plan was simple and brutal. They'd send her out to charm a target, usually a young man. She'd pull him in, and then the 3 men would appear, beat him down, rob him of everything he had, and disappear. That was their operation. That day, the day they rolled into Evanston, they needed money. They spotted a motel on the edge of town, the kind you see in foreign movies. Small, sitting right off the main road, a vacancy sign blinking in the dark. They told the girl, "Go in tonight. The owner's at the front desk alone. Work your magic. Get him to take you to one of the rooms. We'll be waiting outside." She said, "Okay." She walked in. She told him she was a stranger in town, that she needed a room and that she didn't have money, but she'd find a way to make it work. The owner looked at her and saw an opportunity. He said, "Come on, let's go to one of the rooms." She followed him in and made sure to leave the door slightly open, not fully shut, just enough. Within moments, the 3 men slipped inside. They grabbed the motel owner, and they beat him. Within the hour, he was dead. They took his watch, they took the cash, they took his credit cards, they cleaned him out completely, and then they vanished. The next morning, one of the maids came in to clean the rooms. She opened one of the rented rooms and found the motel owner, beaten to death. She called the authorities immediately. Officers arrived and assessed the scene. The man had been beaten with extreme, savage brutality, skull fractures, broken bones. They noted it was a robbery, yes, but the level of violence was something else entirely. This wasn't a person. This was something monstrous. They started investigating. They took fingerprints. They canvassed the area. They asked questions. Nothing. The case went into the books as unsolved, but investigators were frightened because they understood what they were dealing with. This wasn't one person. This was a gang, and a gang like this didn't stop at one crime. They were still out there. That same day, the gang was moving, driving through and around the city, in and out. And that's when they saw it. A trailer broken down on the side of the road. Audrey's trailer. She and her young relative were standing there on the shoulder. The truck dead, the young man trying to figure out what was wrong with it. And he couldn't fix it. The gang pulled over. They were driving a pickup truck, a single cab, one bench seat pickup. The four of them packed into the front. Audrey's relative saw them get out and immediately felt something wrong. These three men, the tattoos on their necks, the gang colors, yellow and red and green, the way they looked at him. Something in his gut said run. But there was nowhere to go. The girl was still in the truck. The three men walked over and said, "You need help?" He said, "Yeah, the truck broke down." They looked at it, fiddled with it for a moment, and quickly realized they couldn't fix it either. "Listen," one of them said. "Leave the lady here. You come with us. There's a garage nearby. We'll take you. Get someone to come back and fix it." He said, "God bless you, but where am I going to sit? That's a single bench seat. There are four of you already." "In the back," they said. "Just ride in the truck bed." They opened the tailgate. The moment he climbed in, they slammed it shut, locked it. Iron walls around him. And they drove. He was scared. He didn't want to show it. He didn't want them to know he was onto them. And then they started playing games, slamming the brakes, hard, flooring the gas, yanking the wheel left, then right. This poor man became like a pinball inside a metal box, slamming into the walls, the floor, the corners. He got hit so bad, head injuries, injuries to his arms, his legs. He was in agony, and in that agony, a terrible clarity hit him. He thought, "These people are going to kill me. There's nothing I can do to stop it. But maybe I can at least leave something behind. Some proof that I was here." He reached into his pocket and found his key, and he started scratching his name into the metal wall of the truck bed. Letter by letter, carving his name into that iron. A little while later, the truck stopped. They opened the tailgate and dragged him out, and they beat him. Punches, kicks, they stomped on his face. They broke him. He was bleeding from everywhere. They took his money, his watch, his belongings, and they threw him back in, shut the tailgate again, and they went back for Audrey. "Come with us, old woman." They grabbed her, threw her in the truck bed alongside her broken relative, and drove away. Same routine, slamming brakes, sharp turns, that iron box becoming a weapon. The 60-year-old woman got the full treatment, and she couldn't take it. The trauma, the impacts, the terror. Audrey lost consciousness. They stopped in the middle of a forest and pulled them both out. They beat Audrey, and she never came back from it. That frail 60-year-old woman didn't survive the beating. They robbed whatever she had on her. Then they dug a grave and buried her. They turned back to the young man, the relative, barely conscious, barely alive. "He's not dead yet," one of them said. One of the men pulled out a knife and stabbed him 16 times, until he went still, until they were sure he was gone. They dragged him over and buried him in a grave right next to Audrey's. And they walked away. God, these people. They left no one standing. They had a history of this, you could tell. These were practiced killers. They didn't flinch, they didn't hesitate. They'd done this before. But God had other plans. In the middle of that night, deep in that forest, deep in that dirt, something stirred. Life came back to the young man. He wasn't dead. He'd been stabbed 16 times, yes. He was bleeding from everywhere, yes. But not one of those 16 stab wounds had hit anything vital. His body had shut down from the sheer magnitude of the blood loss and the trauma and the shock. They had assumed he was dead. He wasn't. His eyes opened. He was inside a grave. He tried to move, couldn't. The dirt pressed against him from every direction. Soil and debris was finding its way into his nose, into his mouth. He started to panic. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to focus. He pushed. His hand, moving through the dirt, inch by inch, slow and desperate. Eventually broke through the surface. They hadn't bothered to dig deep. It was a shallow grave, maybe 2 meters. They didn't want to put in the effort. He pushed harder. He clawed. He scraped the dirt away from above him and pushed it off to the side. Because every time he tried to clear it straight up, it would avalanche back down and choke him. He learned. He adapted. He kept going. Until, finally, he pulled himself out. He was out of the grave, bleeding, barely able to move. The forest around him quiet and dark. But he could see the road. The main road wasn't far, just hidden by the trees. He couldn't stand, so he crawled. Inch by inch, he crawled through the brush and the grass, leaving a trail of blood behind him. He reached the edge of the road. And then he passed out. A driver passed by, completely by chance, and in the darkness by the road, he caught a shape that didn't belong. A man on the ground, covered in blood. But there was a pulse. He threw him in the car and flew to the hospital, straight into surgery. The next day, when he came out from the anesthesia, law enforcement was there. "What happened? Who are you? What's your story?" He told them everything. 4 people, 3 men and a woman. They lured him into the truck. They killed Audrey. He told them where, the forest, the area, the details. He told them about the trailer still sitting on the side of the road. They went. They found Audrey's grave. They recovered her body. They found the trailer exactly where he said. And then he told them something that stopped them cold. "The pickup truck. I carved my name into the inside of the truck bed. If you find the truck, you'll know it's theirs. My name is in there." They put out a bulletin. Every available officer. Description of the vehicle. Description of all 4 suspects. They searched. They searched. Then, late that same evening, an off-duty officer happened to be heading to a supermarket. He pulled into the lot, and walking out of that supermarket, the 3 men, each one holding a bottle of liquor. The girl with them, getting into the car that matched the bulletin exactly. He called it in immediately. They mobilized. They moved in. All 4 were arrested. The ages told part of the story. One was 24, one was 30, one was 35, and the girl was 18. But the girl's story was something else. She had been abducted from her family 5 years earlier, taken when she was 13 years old. In the years since, she developed a powerful emotional attachment to the leader of the gang, the man who had taken her, who had raised her in that life. She had become his partner, his accomplice, his tool. She participated in luring victims willingly, or at least, that's how it appeared. When investigators dug deeper, they uncovered the full scope of what this gang had done. In one state, they'd murdered a man and dumped him in a ditch. In another state, they'd abducted a girl, assaulted her, and killed her. They'd robbed across multiple counties. They'd run a blackmail operation using the girl as bait. She'd get close to a man, and then one of the 3 would walk in claiming to be her brother, another claiming to be her husband. They'd beat the man senseless and take everything he had, or extort him for more. They'd been running this for years, until God dropped Audrey's relative in their path, the young man who crawled out of his own grave and brought them down. At trial, one of the 3 men couldn't face what was coming. He knew it was a life sentence. No way out. No possibility of the life he'd known ever returning. He hanged himself in his cell before the verdict. The other 2 were tried and convicted, sentenced to life in prison. As for the girl, the court looked at her situation carefully. She had been kidnapped at age 13. She had spent 5 years under the psychological control of a violent criminal. Experts recognized what had happened to her. Stockholm Syndrome. The victim who falls in love with her captor, who bonds with the person who took everything from her. Yes, she had participated in the crimes. That was real. But the court sentenced her to 10 years, with mandatory psychiatric treatment throughout. And that is where our story ends.